Hi, welcome to our parent-teacher meeting, and today I'm just going to be going over a general overview of your student, how they're doing in our class, a pre-assessment and post-assessment I did, and just generally where they are in my class right now. So first, I'd like to start with some observations I have of your student. There are some concerning things I'd like to address. The first is that your student has some difficulty working with groups, and meaning that they're easily distracted when they work with groups. Overall, they work well with their peers and they like working with their peers. It's just when they work as a group, they don't get the work done the same way they do when they work individually. The second area of concern I have is that they're reluctant to start their work on their own, meaning when we transition away from working as a class into doing individual work, they don't start their work. They wait until we are going over the problems and reviewing as a class to get their work started. And that contributes to the third area of concern I have, which is the student is requiring more time to complete their work than what we have time for in class. But there are some positive observations I'd like to go over more importantly. Your student is very eager to work. They are excited about learning. They're highly motivated. They seem to be motivated by pleasing their parents and by pleasing their teacher. And they're just excited to learn, which is a good thing. The next thing I'd like to go over is their strengths and some areas of need. But first, I'd like to cover their strengths. And the first strength is that your student is really well adjusted. They really enjoy working with their peers, and they have a lot of friends. The second is that your student is really resilient. They're not easily discouraged, and when they do struggle academically, they bounce right back and get right back on the horse. Some areas of concern I have for your student is that they are easily distracted when they work with groups, but that's something we can work on. And a second concern I have is that they have trouble manipulating numbers with decimals in them, and that your student is overly cautious when it comes to doing work on their own. That's something I stated before, and that's just an area of need they have. Where we are currently in mathematics is we're dividing with decimals, and there's some background information your student's going to need to have to be successful with dividing with decimals, and that's going to be they're going to need to know how to add and subtract numbers with and without decimals. They're going to need to know how to multiply numbers with and without decimals, and they're going to need to know the basic process of division. I did an informal pre-assessment of your student. I gave them 10 math problems to do. All the problems had decimals in them, and they performed with a 50% accuracy when solving these problems. And the main issue they had was that they were losing track of their decimal point while they were working through the problems. So when they were adding or multiplying, their decimal would just kind of get lost in the problem, and it would end up in the wrong place, causing their answer to be wrong. The lesson plan I recently taught with them was dividing with decimals, and the way I did this was an I do, we do, you do method. Meaning first I modeled how to do the problem on the board. I showed them step by step what to do. Then we solved some problems together as a class, and then finally I gave them independent practice to work on. And something I really wanted to implement with your student was UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning. And to do that, I used multiple means of engagement. So I tried really hard to connect what they were learning with real life, and I connected decimals with money, and that seemed to really help your student. The relevancy of decimals and money, and knowing that decimals and money are kind of the same thing, really got through to your student, and once I did that, I saw an improvement in their scores. And after the lesson was all said and done in the post-assessment phase, your student scored about 70% accuracy when dividing with decimals. Overall, I'm having a really positive experience with your student. Like I said, they're eager to learn, they want to learn, and that's everything when it comes to teaching a student. And finally, there are some instructional strategies I'm going to implement with your student to help them achieve all their goals. And the first is the universal design for learning. I'm going to use multiple means of engagement to connect with your student to make math relevant to their real life. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get them more time to complete their assignments for that area of concern we discussed. And I've been having them, when we have some free time in class, or just come in a couple days a week during lunch and work on their work so they don't get behind and they don't feel rushed. And the third final thing I'm going to work on with your student is working in groups, because that's an important aspect of learning. Overall, I feel really positive for your student's future success in my classroom.